Let's talk user testing. At the end of the day, we're always designing for actual users. That's what it means to practice human centered design. So, at any given stage of the design process, it makes sense for us to put our prototypes in front of actual users to see if they can accomplish the tasks that we're trying to design solutions for. When we do this on a website, typically this is called usability testing. Now, user testing and usability testing are often used interchangeably. User testing is a bit broader to get overall reactions to something. Usability testing determines how hard or easy a specific application is to use. To do this, we often create a brief list of tasks. We recruit users as close to our target audience as possible, and then we observe them as they try to complete those tasks. These next few slides are from the Nielsen Norman Group because they give a pretty good pitch on why we do this. So, usability testing helps us uncover problems in the design solution. Through that, we can also discover opportunities or new ideas based on what the users are talking about as they're going through the task. And it also helps us empathize with our users. So we can really see the design process come full circle here. We are testing our design solution, but we're also empathizing with our user to further define the problem. In every usability test, there are a few common variables. There's the facilitator, whether they are with the participant or not, someone who administers the tasks. There's the tasks themselves, and these need to be realistic activities that are part of an actual user journey. And then there's the participant. So this is someone who is as close to the target audience as possible, and they are the ones giving feedback on the design. The way this works is the facilitator administers the tasks, and they watch the participant attempt to complete them. Oftentimes, they ask the participant to speak aloud because what we're trying to do is to get inside the heads of the user to best understand how they're reacting to the design. So, as you observe the user, sometimes they'll do something that you weren't expecting, and it's important to use that opportunity to follow up with them and say, "What did you expect to happen when you did that?" Or, "Can I ask you why you're looking there for this information?" So let's say that my task here is you've decided to buy your friend their most desired Christmas gift, a PlayStation 5. You think the local media store might sell them. Attempt to purchase the PlayStation online. So we'll say this is the task we've been given, and the site we're testing is this record store. So right off the bat, let's pretend I don't know much about this store, so I think I'm being advertised to join the team. I want to view their products because I want to see if they have PlayStations. This is absolutely not PlayStations, and it doesn't even look like it's a full view of their products, which I expected when I clicked here. It seems like this may have been a button just to view whatever this product is. So where would I go to find PlayStations? So it does look like they have gaming stuff. I just need to figure out where to find their game systems. So I click on the hamburger menu. I get a menu as I would expect, and then I can go to games. These do not look like games. This looks like movies, so I'm a little bit confused here, but down here we do have game stuff. I'm going to go back here and see if the arrow gives me anything different. Let's try PlayStation. This is a little bit confusing, this filter being kind of in the grid with everything else. But I do see PS5, so I'm going to try to go here. I have a lot of blank, empty boxes, which is quite difficult to scan. And I also don't see the system at all. So I am trying to open up the filter. And under product type, all I see is games. So maybe they don't have the system, but let me try just searching for it just to see. Oh, it didn't come up under a search, but I did see under the suggested search when I started to type PS5 system did come up. So let's see what that gives us. And here it is here in this big grid of empty images. This is pretty confusing and not what I would expect, because I would expect to be able to find systems, first of all, under the game system filter back on the PlayStation page. But the only way I was able to get to this was to actually search the name of the thing and system. So I'm kind of confused what the point of the information hierarchy here is. But we found it, so let's see if we can purchase it online. See, this is PS5 Core Game System, which I assume is what I want. Looks like I'm a little confused if these are meta tags or if they're selections, because it looks like I could also select used. But game electronics and system hardware seem like they're just labels for what this product is. If I select used, looks like the price changes to $0, which I can't imagine is the actual case, but maybe that means they're out of stock, or it's just in the system wrong or something. So this is quite confusing. But I also don't see anywhere to actually purchase it here. So it looks like I have to check the store for availability, and I can't buy it online. But at least it says it's in this store nearby, so I could call them to double check. But I don't feel like I trust this very much because of how kind of clunky and unpolished the rest of the website is. So I've tried to complete the task. I can't buy it online, and that's kind of my general feedback as I try to go through the task. So, what are some stages of user testing? First, we prototype our design as best as we can. It just depends on what stage you're trying to get feedback in. Sometimes user experience researchers will do this with pencil and paper prototypes or cardboard. Nowadays, obviously, it makes a lot more sense to do this digitally, since tools like Figma are so quick to whip up high fidelity prototypes. Then we determine the decisions that we want to test. For example, maybe we want to see if our screen flow makes sense, or we might want to see if a certain button placement makes sense. And we're kind of outlining the framework of what it is we want to know from the test. Then we script our user testing tasks. So we write out those questions. And the way that we phrase these is very important so that we're not leading the user. So, for example, you shouldn't say, in our example of the PlayStation 5, search for the PlayStation on the site, because that would inherently prime the user to use the search bar instead of navigating to it however is most obvious to them. In these scripts, it's really important to leave some notes for other things that come up. I personally like to use like copies of a Word document template, so that for each test I can take notes on that user and then compile them all at the end. Then once we've done plenty of these user tests, or as many as we're planning to do, we take a look at all of the answers and we pick out those patterns that we're looking for, just like we did when we're doing user research. Finally, we compile that analysis with some suggestions for the design moving forward, and we deliver that report to the designers. Some practical tips here from me conducting these. It's really important that you ask the test subject to think aloud during the process. Even if you're recording it, you can see what they're doing, but not why they're doing it. And again, refrain from leading them. It's important not to tell them how to do something right off the bat, because you're trying to see what doesn't make sense and what doesn't work. And only by watching them get kind of frustrated at the product do we get the full story. If they really can't make it through that part, go ahead and help them to the next part of the task and just keep going. And also capture at least 5 users. One or two just really isn't enough to find patterns. 5 users is a great number for some qualitative data. It's not statistically significant, but for qualitative data, it's really helpful. I would always say it's better to have some informal testing when you can actually use it in the design process than it is to plan a perfect user test that never gets done. So it's important to iterate and work quickly. If you have a budget for user testing, you should use at least part of that to incentivize participation from actual users instead of conducting your user test with people who aren't the intended audience of your site. In-person testing is really great if you can get it, but if you can't, video calls and doing screen recordings are super helpful too. And there are now tools for asynchronous testing, platforms for user research. Also, this can feel like a really awkward process at first because it's kind of a forced interaction. But after you conduct a few of these, you start to get into a rhythm and you'll really feel like it's worth going through that because of the novel insights you're going to get and that you see as users react to your designs. Finally, we can talk about continuous improvement. So, this is after a site or a product is launched. Figuring out what's working and what's not working, and then making changes as you go. So most digital products gather just like a gold mine of data, as we know, and information on how people interact with them. So the marketing team is usually the first point of contact with who gets that information, but it's a great resource for designers as well to understand how the users are interacting with the product and to make some continuous design improvements. One example of a product that does this is Hotjar. There are others out there. This captures little mini screen recordings of users going through the site, and it can display things like heat maps for the content that people interact with or hover over the most, so you can see what items are capturing people's attention. From a very high level, Google Analytics is kind of a standard that is installed on most websites. This shows a high level overview of the pages that people are interacting with. It can show e commerce data. You can implement goals to see, for example, if you want to measure who is most likely to sign up for your newsletter. You can see, if they view page A, are they more likely to sign up? Or if they view page B, are they more likely to sign up? There's almost always platform native analytics as well. So in this example, Squarespace has their own backend analytics. If you've seen something like the backend of a business Instagram or Facebook profile, they have their own suite of analytics, and those all track things slightly differently. Those measurements are how you justify investment in design to stakeholders. So if you take away nothing else, make sure that you are measuring something.